Good to go?
Good to go.
Cool. Are
So,
we
yeah, we're good. So I think what we want to do first is let's just kind of take the 30,000 foot view and,
Yeah, definitely.
what'd you think of the massive 10 pick draft class that we got going on?
Uh, uh well, I think I like most of the picks quite a bit. Uh I think Peyton took the long view for most of the picks. Wasn't trying to necessarily fill an immediate need right now at the cost of like the talent of the draft. So that was good. I think Patrick Surtain was the best defensive player in the draft, so that was great. Uh Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of complaints in terms of like the first couple, like the picks themselves. I thought Javonte Williams was the top running back in this class. He was a perfect scheme fit for the Broncos. Uh, I liked Caden Stearns quite a bit. I think he makes sense as an athletic, toolsy kind of developmental safety. I think Jamar Johnson. I had questions about how he fits the Fangio defense, but I really like him as a prospect. The fact that he brings both corner and nickel and slot experience and safety experience, I think that's good. He's a ball hawk in coverage. Uh, I love Baron Browning. I've been debating if I wanted Baron Browning to be a first round player for me for months.
They got
So
him
the
at
fact that the
pick 105.
yeah, so I liked that. I think the questions about him are legitimate. So I definitely understand why he slid, but at the same time, like I think with Fangio, he's going to coach him up, and I like how he fits the Broncos defense. I think you'll be able to help him find a role early. He'll probably help the edge rush early, but also he could develop into essentially a more athletic Alexander Johnson down the road, and I'm down for that. I think Quinn Miners surprised me just because I didn't think the Broncos were going to prioritize the interior offensive line like they did, but I like the player a lot.
Oh yeah, I like that wooded area, pancaking tree video. If that doesn't hype you up, you're not enjoying the draft. So,
It's true.
I mean, I think the biggest issue that a lot of fans had, I'm getting a little feedback here, is that there was that flurry of Aaron Rodgers drama leading up to the draft, and it got everybody hyped for the possibility of a Peyton Manning 2.0 situation, and that all fell apart pretty quick, and so there was a lot of overreaction to the Broncos' first round pick. Um, and I noticed a lot of people the next day that were really pissed that they passed on Justin Fields had a chance to just kind of like, oh, wait a minute, we might have just gotten a Champ Bailey type player. So, I really liked the Patrick Surtain pick. Or is it Surtain? I'm not sure.
It's
Oh,
Sertan.
Surtain.
Yep.
Okay. Um, I think his body length is really good for outside. He's long and he's got good technique. Everything I saw from him just screams, Pro Bowler. Um, the quarterback thing, the quarterback situation that'll have to get worked out at some point. Maybe Drew Lock can take a huge leap forward. But I mean, this roster is stacked. Pro Football Focus said it's the sixth best roster in the NFL, and if their quarterback situation wasn't such a mess, they'd rank them even higher. So there's a lot to be excited about. I liked the draft every step of the way. I think they had neglected the defense in the draft the last couple of years. They went offense heavy early and often, um, and that's just something that if you do that for consecutive drafts, you're going to start aging on one side of the ball. So I like that they paid a lot of attention to the defense, get some young players in there and kind of even things out, especially with Von Miller, Kareem Jackson. Those guys are getting a little older. So if I were to grade the whole thing, I'd still give it a B plus, just because we don't really know how the quarterback situation is going to play out, and that's like, I'm going to be holding my breath early in the season to see whether it's Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, how that's going to play out. So, but in a vacuum, what part of the draft did you hate the most, I guess? Let's start with the negative. I know which one. I know you're gonna say because you were ranting about it the whole time that
I mean,
after it happened, but
well, and the thing is, the fact that they passed on Justin Fields, we got a report today from Ian Rappaport that the reason it happened is because Aaron Rodgers. And again, you can take that for what it's worth. I don't, I have from a pretty reliable source that the Broncos were like this close to acquiring Aaron Rodgers on the first night of the draft. I have no idea if it's going to happen. The Packers bailed out on it based on my like what I've heard. So we'll see. Rodgers doesn't sound like he's going to come around. But I do think the draft as a whole is incomplete right now because we don't know what's going to happen at quarterback. And if the Broncos aren't going to do anything at quarterback, then unless Drew Lock makes a huge jump, they're basically locked into QB purgatory because the roster itself looks too good to get in the top 10 again, barring just an insane wave of injuries again. And that's my biggest complaint about this draft is this was your chance to get a quarterback and you're waiting. So unless George Payton is just that sure that he's going to get Aaron Rodgers, I feel like passing on Justin Fields is indefensible. That said, I love Pat Surtain. I think, like I said, I think he's the best defensive player in the draft. He was the seventh player on my board, top corner. I can't believe the Panthers passed on him to take J.C. Horn. I like J.C. Horn. He's not Patrick Surtain. I think Patrick Surtain can turn into an elite shutdown cornerback in the NFL.
yeah, I see a lot of Champ Bailey type traits, so I'm excited about that. But
Definitely.
you know, I thought you would have said the trade up in the second
Oh
round
yeah.
was your
I mean,
least favorite moment.
if we're talking about beyond Fields, because again, it's hard, and we've had you and I have both kind of dealt with this the last couple days. There's a lot of people that are having issue with the fact that I love the draft class. I don't necessarily love all the process that led to the picks, and that's kind of where I'm at. And part of it is the Fields, the fact that he passed on him, but the other part was I don't like that he traded up for Javonte Williams, even though I love Javonte Williams. But in a draft class where historically the hit rate on draft picks starts to fall off really fast after the fourth round. And the Broncos gave away a fourth round pick to go get a running back. Now, the one thing that might end up proving to be true with this, and again, I love Williams enough. I'm willing to believe this. This isn't a normal draft class. First of all, NFL teams have less information than ever. So if the Broncos only had a few running backs they felt really comfortable with, they may have just been willing to go get Williams because the fall off from him is so far. So I get that. I still have some issue with it just because I think that fourth round pick would have been really helpful. But I love the pick. He's here. Pookie. So I'm very excited to see him play. I actually want to see what jersey he picks. He wore 25 at North Carolina, but obviously Melvin Gordon has that now. So
Yeah, and I think I think back to that what was that movie? Something like the Dumber and Dumber movie where you do something that you hate and then a few minutes later he turns around and says you totally redeemed yourself. You know that scene? Well, that was the third round
yeah,
for me. When he strategically moved back, picked up a six rounder, and then moved back again and picked up late third rounders, and then the guys that they got with those two third rounders. I mean, that was hitting it out of the park for me. I thought that was a masterful stroke to pick up three players for the price of one. It was a good move. I liked it. I liked both of those trades.
I did too, and I really like again because of the lack of information. I feel like NFL teams their draft boards were really different this year. There was less opportunity for scouts to kind of come together and for groupthink to kind of take over. So, and I think because of that, players felt that those of us outside the NFL were kind of surprised by, just because we, as a collective, draft Twitter, were so high on. Baron Browning was a player that, like, I know PFF had him in the fourth round. Basically, everyone else had him in the second to high third range. So the fact that he fell all the way to where he did was pretty surprising. I would have considered him where they took Pookie. Quinn Miners, most people expected him to go in the second or the top of the third. What I thought was really interesting is that George Payton at his press conference about it said that he had those two in a group with about six others as the top two players on their board. And he was willing to trade back and risk losing them to pick up day three picks but he was not willing to risk losing Patrick Surtain to take a quarterback. And that again to me confirms that the Broncos either they're very, very confident in Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, which I mean it may be the case, or I think George Payton has something else up his sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers' situation hasn't played out fully yet.
Yeah.
Um, and the like you said, the Panthers pick of J.C. Horn might have forced the Broncos' hand. They could have been looking at Justin Fields right up until Carolina made the pick, and they were like,
Well,
"Well, okay, I guess we're taking Patrick Surtain." So,
well,
we don't really
and
know
again,
what happened in the back
I
room there.
agree. And I do think that there is a possibility. I know George Payton did say that they did like Justin Fields. I and again, I'm not trying to call George Payton a liar, but I don't really believe that just based off what I'd heard the week leading up to the draft. I had heard from a pretty reliable source that the Broncos were really enamored with Trey Lance. They were
Hey, so was I. So,
and they were considering Mac Jones, but they were out on Justin Fields, is what I've heard. So I don't think that they were going to take Justin Fields regardless. But I don't think like what are you going to say as a GM? Are you going to come out and say no, we hated him? Like you're
yeah.
not going to do that. So
And they didn't trade back. So,
and they didn't trade back.
you
That's
know,
the part I have the biggest issue with. If you don't like Justin Fields, I didn't like that they didn't take the haul that the Giants got just because again, if you don't have a quarterback, you could have had a 2022 first rounder to go try and chase one next year.
yeah. But
I love Patrick Surtain though. So again, I feel it's
yeah,
a
if
conflicted
they got Champ Bailey reincarnated, I
exactly.
mean, you don't
I
trade
feel
away that pick.
conflicted about it because again, the process for me is tough, but I
Yeah.
like what they came out with.
I mean, I'm good with it. We did get a few questions in the chat room about some prospects. Let me look back here. Is there any way they go after Newman? I'm not sure who he's talking
Oh,
about.
Jamie Newman, the
Jamie
quarterback.
Newman? Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean they definitely could. I think Jamie Newman, the fact that he opted out last year, and again, I don't have any problem with a player opting out in the middle of a pandemic, but the fact that Jamie Newman opted out last year means that we have really no I we don't really we don't have the tape of him and see and a chance to see how he progressed at Georgia. He did do some training with them before the pandemic hit, but he struggled at the Senior Bowl. The offense he was in at Wake Forest was kind of a gimmicky offense, and it kind of hid a lot of his issues. Also, he's not very accurate. Was the biggest complaint about his tape, and that I know we all kind of stick to Josh Allen, but most quarterbacks that are not accurate don't become more accurate in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that with Paxton Lynch,
Drew Lock,
Drew Lock even. I kind of when we drafted him, I ignored that red flag and just said, he improved each year when he was at Missouri, and then he hasn't really improved beyond that in the NFL. So, I mean, there's still time. So, we'll
still
see.
time.
I'm not gonna, say he's done, but there's accuracy concerns in college is definitely something that
It's a red
translates to the
flag.
NFL. Yeah. Um, somebody said we're gonna go get Dylan Moses.
I hope so.
Okay.
So Dylan, the big concern with Dylan Moses, and again, I'm not watching the undrafted free agent signings as they're happening live right now, just because we're on the camera. But the problem with Dylan Moses that probably knocked him out of the draft, he suffered the ACL tear in 2019, right before the season. When he came back last year, he was not the same, and not only was he not the same, but he's been on record saying that he almost quit football because he played through pain. And I would assume that the NFL teams, that's a big red flag because, first of all, they have to do the medical check to see if his knee is ever going to get back to where it was. If they can, he could be a steal because in
Yeah.
2018, he looked like he was going to be a first round pick, probably a high first round pick.
And we've seen
Um,
we've seen guys need a year to fully get back to
yeah,
100% from an ACL tear. So it's not uncommon for that to be a thing.
agreed.
We have our first undrafted free agent signing per Mike Kliss, Nolan Laufenberg, Air Force offensive guard. So that must be a Mike
I,
Munchak special right there.
yep, I will have to watch him because he was not on my radar.
No, you don't watch Air
Uh,
Force?
I don't watch a lot of Air Force. No, they run an option offense, so he's going to probably be pretty comfortable with run blocking. But I haven't watched him.
Hey,
But
if the running game needs
it's
to improve. So
it's interesting to me that they're prioritizing building up the interior. And I know that they said yesterday that they have in the back of their mind that Dalton Reisner can play out at tackle. So I'm curious if that's kind of the backup plan if Jawan James isn't up to snuff because
Yeah, because Wilkinson's
they
gone, right? So
Wilkinson's gone. DeMar Dotson is a free agent. Calvin Anderson did play a little bit last year. He wasn't necessarily good. He's young, so like you can still hope they'll come along, but
yeah, and I know
it
Mike
seems odd that they
Munchak.
haven't planned around it.
I know Munchak is really high on Calvin Anderson's potential.
Yep.
So it's one of those things. He got some experience. Maybe he built on that. We don't really know yet because he's still kind of in that development phase. But it's good that the first signing is offensive lineman because that's
Yeah,
where they
definitely.
they ignored in the draft.
Yeah, well, and what's surprising to me, and I tweeted this, but it's surprising to me that over the last 2 years, in two very very deep tackle classes, the Broncos didn't take a single tackle.
Yeah, well, I like Jerry Judy and KJ Hamler. So um, Pengzo says Cade Johnson would be a lot of fun. Oh, Newman
Oh
signed with the
yeah, definitely.
Eagles. I just caught up. Rip.
No, Cade Johnson came out of South Dakota. He doesn't have a lot of receiving yards. His production's kind of hurt by the fact that they ran the ball a lot, but he's a promising athlete, and he's a better route runner than he gets credit for. So I'd be all for him getting a chance.
Got our second undrafted free agent signing here. South Carolina fullback Adam Prentice. Um,
It's
looks like he I don't know. For some reason, Scotty put Colorado State, so I'm confused. But he's South Carolina fullback. Um, yeah, I mean they're paying a lot of attention to the run game, and if you're gonna go with Bridgewater Lock, that's a big thing.
probably the
You're
way to
gonna
go.
need a lot of running backs. Um,
Yeah.
let me let
What's
Scotty know he got that wrong.
What's interesting about that too is that Pat Shermer doesn't use fullbacks.
Oh, he was a former CSU, so Colorado State and South Carolina fullback. So who knows what I don't know which college he's actually from.
I would think that he's being signed mostly for special teams, just because again, Pat Shermer, he's not going to. He'll play maybe like maybe 50 snaps, and that's
Yeah,
probably generous.
Pat Shermer's
And
never been big on running the ball, and we're really putting a focus on running the ball. So I don't know how that's going to work.
well, and Prentice is 5'11", so he doesn't really offer you anything as like an H back or tight end type because he's too short.
Yeah,
So he's a pure fullback. 250 pounds, so he's a sledgehammer, but
yeah. I mean, they
he's probably
didn't
a special teamer
they kept Tom McMahon, so this is a make or break year for him. I haven't been impressed
again.
with the special teams at all, and he just sticks around. So maybe the plan is like, hey, we drafted all these guys for you, make it work. I don't know.
It, And as far as that goes, I will say that the draft class as a whole should help the special teams quite a bit just because Baron Browning has the athletic tools and the physicality and the ability to break down in space to be a very good special teamer early. Caden
Hmm.
Stern, same thing. Very, very fast, very good athlete. Jamar Johnson could be. I mean, he'll definitely have to earn his way there early on. Seth Williams, Kerry Vincent, both should be special teams contributors. Uh, I would think that Cooper will probably do whatever you ask. Basically, everything I've ever heard about Cooper is that he's an effort guy. Like
Yeah,
that's what he
yeah.
does. He blocked an extra kick at Ohio State at one point, so I could see him being a factor on special teams as well. Uh, so I mean, I get that, and Peyton did prioritize special. That's why they let Philip Lindsay go and sign Mike Boone, is because Mike Boone offers you something on special teams.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Speaking of Philip Lindsay, did you see his tweet yesterday?
I did not. What do you say,
He basically crying, laughing emoji because the Broncos drafted
Javante
Javante,
Williams?
yeah, Javante Williams, and I'm just like, I mean, I like you, Philip Lindsay, but looking at Javante Williams, he's probably going to be a little bit better at breaking tackles and getting in the end zone. And I'm
Philip
just
Philip
saying, but I
Philip
like
Lindsay was
Philip Lindsay, but
miscast. Philip Lindsay was miscast when the Broncos hired Pat Shermer
yeah,
because Pat Shermer likes big backs. Like if you look at all the
he,
backs dating back to whenever, the backs that teams that he is coordinating for, they always acquire 210 plus pound running backs. Like they don't he might inherit a smaller guy, but they don't bring those guys in because he wants to run inside zone and power concepts. He doesn't want to run the
And
kind of stuff that would
Williams is really good catching the ball out of the backfield too. So they're
yeah.
going to add that. Um,
Yep, and he's a decent blocker. If he gets better with his pass protection like technique, like especially his hand placement, he could be a very good blocker. And Shermer does ask his running backs to block a lot.
1 second.
Yeah, you're good. I want to know for you, those of you listening, what was your favorite pick other than Sertan?
Well, I do have
Just because
one.
I'm curious.
I have one hypothetical here.
Yeah.
So you would rather take Fields and end up starting Teddy and have the whole coaching staff get fired and start over than give Locke a shot, keep possibility of AR or Aaron Rodgers, or get Watson, Ryan, or something else next year. So I think he's saying like, I mean,
I get it.
without a quarterback, this coaching staff is probably going to get fired no matter what, whether you give Drew
Well,
Lock a shot this year or you give Teddy Bridgewater the reins. It really,
the,
it's a rough situation for Vic Fangio.
there's a lot of nuance involved in the quarterback discussion, and that's why it's so hard to kind of like break this down. So first of all, the fact that the Broncos signed, like they didn't trade for Teddy Bridgewater, like just because, like the timing of that was very obvious that Peyton was pretty certain that Trey Lance wasn't going to be available. Like that's why they did it because they knew they weren't going to be interested in Justin Fields.
And you have to be aggressive to get the guy you want when
Well,
it
he was
comes
at
to the
3.
quarterback.
If
But when it comes
they
to
should have been
quarterback,
they should have been if they wanted to get Trey Lance, they had to make that trade back when
I
the
know.
Niners. Yeah,
And Denver never does it. They're very
no.
passive with the quarterback situation. You know, that's why Aaron Rodgers,
But
that's why I was on board with Deshaun Watson. It's like this team just doesn't seem to want
well,
to just go up and get the guy in the draft.
But by grabbing Teddy Bridgewater, what it does is it protects them against Drew Lock. Like if Drew Lock doesn't develop off of what he showed last year, Teddy Bridgewater will beat him in a competition because Teddy Bridgewater last year is better than what Drew Lock was last year.
That's
I
true.
expect I expect Drew Lock to improve off of last year, but that's what they're doing is they're trying to protect themselves against that. That said, the reason that I think that they didn't take Mac Jones is because they have a plan for Aaron Rodgers. And
Hope
again,
so.
we'll
I
see if
hope
it
so.
comes to we'll see if it comes to fruition, but I think that that's what it was. But that said, would I rather take Justin Fields than roll with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater? Yes, every single time. I
So
think Justin Fields has Pro Bowl potential. I think Drew Lock, at the end of the day, is the guy that you have until you're trying to get at a guy.
So Matt Tuttle in chat, he's like, if quarterback were taken out of the picture for everyone, do we have a top three NFL team? Now, Pro Football Focus just released like last week. They ranked the Broncos the sixth best roster in the NFL with quarterbacks included, and they added the caveat that it'd be much higher if quarterbacks weren't taken into account. So yeah, I would agree if they added somebody like Aaron Rodgers, instant Super Bowl favorites over the Chiefs
Yeah.
even. Um, and that's why I think the Broncos would be willing to throw the farm at the Green Bay Packers to get him because
And
you become an instant contender in that situation.
I think it's justified for the reason you just said. And honestly, if you got to think when we look at the picks that the Broncos made, if George Payton has a plan to get Aaron Rodgers, taking Patrick Surtain at 9 made a ton of sense because the Broncos are going to need corners next year. And if they have Aaron Rodgers, they won't have the cap space to re-sign all the veterans.
Yeah.
So having Patrick Surtain around as a number one corner makes a ton of sense. And same thing with Baron Browning as a developmental guy to become a starter. Yeah, I agree. If you take quarterback out of it, the Broncos, and again, there's a few if thens just because the injury questions around like Von Miller, Shelby Harris, Cortland Sutton. But on paper, yeah, the Broncos have a top 5 roster outside of quarterback. They also have one of the weakest quarterback rooms in the NFL right now.
So Pangzo says Jamar Johnson was a slam dunk, and I tend to agree. That was a great pick by the Broncos. I liked the fifth round, both safeties, but Jamar Johnson, I think we're probably going to like more than Stearns. Just
I could see Jamar Johnson being the playmaker.
yeah,
I
like
I think
he feels like a Kareem Jackson type guy.
he could be. In Caden, well, the thing with Caden Stearns is that makes him kind of he's a traits over tape guy. Like he's more athletic, by far, but he hasn't produced at the same level that Jamar Johnson did last year. The thing that kind of the thing that's kind of weird, because again, I got roasted yesterday. I did a mock draft. I took two safeties, and a lot of people got mad because they were like, "The Broncos just paid Justin Simmons. Why do you need safeties?" But Vic Fangio used nickel or dime personnel 75% of the time last year.
Yeah, I think Will
Last
Parks.
year, yep. And during the combine last year, he mentioned to Troy Rank that the Broncos actually wanted to move to more dime. So having players that allow him to do that was a priority, clearly in the draft. Like that's so the safeties made sense, and we'll probably see a decent bit of both if they develop.
Nice. Yeah, and then Rich said Browning was a nice, and we talked a little bit about him. You had him like second round type guy who we got in
Yeah,
the basically in the beginning of the fourth round, his last pick of the third round. But um, I mean, we were all
I
talking about where's the linebackers the third round, man. There's Jabril Cox, Baron Browning. Let's go. And when they finally picked one at the end, I think that just made the day.
well, and I had Browning like because I try to separate my Broncos board into tiers of how I saw the players because the rankings themselves, some of them are closer and farther apart than others. But the thing with Browning was that he fell into the tier that I considered a second round guy with first round upside. So the way I saw that was he might have something that knocked him down a little bit. And the big thing with him is his instincts. He he bounced around a little bit at Ohio State. He never really found a permanent home. They tried to play him at Mike. They tried to play him outside. He had a lot of success when he was playing Sam. He had some success when he was rushing off the passer in like an overhang role, but he never really just stayed at one spot and took it over. And his overall like tackle stats, stuff like that, doesn't really pop off the tape when you consider that he was playing Ohio State for a long time. But he became the splash play guy. He has the tools to be like 85 to 90% of Micah Parsons right now in terms of he can rush the passer, he can bend, he has the strength to corner, like he can corner and keep guys off him as he's going around the corner. Beyond that, he's fluid enough in space that he actually, and he's long enough that he can actually impact passing lanes and coverage. The big thing for him is he just needs to adjust, and the game might be fast for him early. But again, I think under Fangio and with that kind of coaching, like we just saw what Fangio did with Alexander Johnson. I think Baron Browning, with coaching, could be an elite player.
Yeah, I solving the problem of covering tight ends and running backs here in Denver would be very nice. So I'm all for that. And out of the linebackers that were on the board, Baron Browning seemed like the best fit for that type of role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that alone makes me feel good about the pick. Um, I hate Travis Kelsey, so I'd like to see him not catch as many passes against the Broncos in the future.
Feel that.
Um, so and not having Justin Simmons have to be the guy that covers him would also be nice.
Well, and I think having versatility of who you match up against Travis Kelsey will help a lot. And one of the issues the Broncos have had well, honestly, since Danny Trevathan and Brandon Marshall were at their peak, is the fact that their linebackers are good run stoppers, but they're not necessarily great in coverage. Alexander Johnson's better than he gets credit for, but he's not a guy you want matched up in man coverage on somebody. He's a guy who's good in space and breaking down on the plays.
um, yeah, and then Meta Firebird says, "Do you think Barron will play in the middle or on the outside?" I think he'll play inside,
He's
next to
inside.
Alexander Johnson.
There's been some talk about him being an edge player. I think the Broncos could use him in that role because again, he does have the ability to bend the edge. And the Broncos, after Malik Reed, they have some question marks at edge depth right now, especially when you consider that Bradley Chubb and Von Miller have an injury history. So Baron Browning could help that way. Also, the way we saw Vic Fangio start to use more stunts and pressures last year, Baron Browning has the skill set to be better at that than Josie Jewell right away. But I do think that if he wins a starting job early, it will be next to Alexander Johnson as the weak side linebacker on the inside.
Yeah, and just kind of taking it back out a ways. I want to respond to this one. Battleship. I feel like Peyton covered all of the possible holes so that next year we are in the best position to either sign and upgrade at QB or move up to take a top QB if Lock doesn't work out. And I mean, I was saying this before the draft because what Peyton did in free agency, I mean, he literally checked every single box you could possibly check to give him. all of the flexibility he would need in the draft this year to get a quarterback. That's why all of us thought the move in the first round was going to be quarterback because I mean he basically filled all the holes that were glaring for this year in free agency. It didn't work out that way, but it all of the picks seem to take the team beyond the needs for this year and next year. Um, and he's starting to draft with the year a year ahead, knowing what he's going to need on the roster beyond the here and now. Obviously, quarterback is right in front of our face still, but um, yeah, that's
No,
that's
I
my
agree.
thoughts.
No, I agree. And that's one of the things I do really like that about George Payton is that he's looking ahead because the Broncos have 31 players who have contracts that expire after this season, not counting UDFAs that they're signing now. But yeah, so the Broncos are going to have probably a hole at safety, so it made sense to grab a safety. Both Kyle Fuller and Bryce Callahan, their contracts run out after the season. Both Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell have contracts that run out after the season. Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, and Deshaun Hamilton have contracts that expire after the season. So it made sense to take players at all those spots in hopes that some of these rookies will develop to help fill out the depth in case you can't pay all these guys. Because again, if you're going to end up going to chasing Aaron Rodgers, whether it's this year or next year, or if you're going to try and trade for Deshaun Watson anytime, next year your cap is not going to be what it was right now. The Broncos are holding on to a lot of cap. I want to say they had $23 million as they entered the draft. Some of that will probably be rollover. Some of that will probably be used to try and extend Cortland Sutton. But if you're Cortland Sutton and you're coming off an injury, it doesn't make sense to re-sign on an extension right now because they're not going to offer you what you could probably earn if you ball out this year. If Cortland Sutton plays like he did in 2019, he's a $20 million receiver. They're not going to offer him that right now.
Yeah. Um, I got a person, Meta Firebird, saying that we have an audio echo. I'm just trying to check up on that. I didn't hear it, so double check here. You never know. It's been almost a year since we streamed, so you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if anybody else is in chat can let us know if there's going on. Let me know. Um,
So what?
Dylan Moses signed with the Jags, so boo.
Good for him.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
boo.
yeah,
But
good for him.
good for him. But yeah, that's a bummer.
The Jags,
It'll probably
man.
it'll probably help him get a chance to get on the field.
In 2 years, the Jags are going to be annoying.
Definitely could be.
Yeah.
I I don't have like any faith in Urban Meyer. So I think they're gonna screw it up. But I definitely think having Trevor Lawrence makes them, especially in the AFC
I mean,
South, that I think the Titans are gonna slide back. I don't think the Titans are as good as people are saying. Like people are remembering what they did the last 2 years, but
yeah,
look at what their roster like. Look what happened because of cap. Like they're gonna take a big step back this year. I think the Jaguars are gonna push for the wild card spot out of the AFC South.
yeah. And I mean, the thing about Urban Meyer though is, has he ever won a national title with a legitimate quarterback?
Well, yeah, and that's he can coach
He finally
or
has a
like
quarterback though, so I don't
yeah.
know. Let's not judge him until we see what he does with a real QB.
I question his personnel decisions more than anything. But I do think I think he can coach. So it's early on. I think they have some talent that they took a lot of players last year with the idea that they're going to develop. So they have talent, more talent than you expect for the team that just drafted Trevor Lawrence. So I do think again, if he can play right away, I think that they could be dangerous. Uh, Outside of quarterback, what would you say is the Broncos' biggest need leaving the draft?
Um, Probably right tackle because there's the question mark with Jawan James is, if he comes back and plays like he did in, was it 2016 or it was a couple years ago. It was
Yeah,
a ways back, but he was like a really damn good right tackle that year. He's been through some injuries, opted out last year. If he returns to form, you know, they don't have an issue, but we haven't really seen him play in a long time. So
wow.
that's the only position I think is a glaring need. The other one would be just interior defensive line depth. They got a couple of good starters there, but I mean, are they really that deep if anybody goes down? You know?
Well, and then it comes down. I was really I'm on board with McTelvin regime, but he did not show a lot as a rookie. He needs to kind of step up as a run defender. So I agree with you. If he doesn't, the interior defensive line could be an issue. So I do understand the decision to pick Spencer up. I haven't studied him yet, so I need to kind of get on that. But I do
Yeah, I
think
looked I looked a little bit at him. He seems like a very down to earth, humble dude. And everything about him just exudes high character, hard worker. He'll be the kind of guy that's first in, last out, always just working his butt off and being a team player. So from that standpoint, I don't know anything about. I haven't seen his tape or anything. I just saw a lot of stuff
mhm.
about him as a man. Uh, a lot to like about him. So whether or not he's a Shelby Harris who was drafted in the seventh round as well. That obviously remains to be seen. So
Well, and that's one other thing that stood out about this class is that outside of like a stupid arrest, the Broncos don't have any like real big character concerns with this draft class. So and I saw a lot of team captains again. So even though George Payton took over for John Elway, the trend of like prioritizing character definitely seems to still be the case with this draft class.
yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely good with it. I'm
You know,
just
you look
it's just
back
something
at
I noticed.
you look back at like the championship teams. Even the 98, 97, 98 team, the 2015. You just had a bunch of high character players that were team focused, worked hard. They were all about the the competition, the winning, being the best they could be on the field with their teammates. That's the kind of people you want on the roster, and that's what builds a championship team when you get all the pieces together and it just everything comes together in a magical season.
Hmm.
But we'll see. The biggest issue obviously is how are they going to score points because last year they scored a little over 20 points per game, and in today's NFL,
Well,
that's basically scoring single digits. So it's
and
just
I do think Javante Williams will help with that just because his the fact that he's so good between the tackles, the fact that he has the contact balance he does, and then the fact that he can be a pass catcher or even a pass blocker, he's it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up stealing like significant time from Melvin Gordon, but I also definitely think I think he had 19 touchdowns on the ground last year for UNC. Like he's a red zone threat.
100%.
And
And
UN
and they struggled in the red zone. That's a big reason why Philip Lindsay isn't here anymore. They it was his contract year. They had Melvin Gordon signed through 20. Like, here's the thing: if Philip Lindsay was signed through 2021 and Melvin Gordon wasn't, Philip Lindsay would be a Bronco right now. It wasn't like they just said, we want Melvin Gordon over Philip Lindsay. It's like we're committed to Melvin Gordon until 2022. We're not committed to you right now. So
well,
yeah, and we're not scoring touchdowns. We're getting stuffed for short yardage gains time after time again. They made a decision. They need to go find a running back that can actually break a few tackles, and that was the other thing Javante Williams did a lot of, and that was breaking tackles. So
yeah.
um,
And one thing I really like about him too is he didn't do it behind a really good offensive line. North Carolina's offensive line was one of the worst in college football last year. So even though they had that, he was still producing, which is that's that's a good sign.
yeah, and he was
Um,
doing it against elite um, ACC teams as well, top 10.
mhm.
I think some of the highlights that I watched, he was breaking some big runs against some top 10 teams in the country. So it wasn't like he was running against, scrubs.
I mean, if you guys haven't seen Javante Williams' Miami game, I do recommend it. It was insane.
That's
Against
the
like
one I was
Jalen
talking about.
Phillips. Yeah, against Jalen Phillips, like he punked him. Like they ran all over him.
Yeah. And Jess has graced us with his presence. He wanted to let us know that he wants Rogers.
Same.
Um, I'm guessing it's um, the A. Rogers the Packers drafted yesterday, their wide receiver.
Did you see
Is he
that
a
he
wide?
picked number 8? I don't know why he didn't just pick number 12. It's gonna be open pretty soon.
Oh, who tweeted that as like to soften the blow to Packers fans?
Yeah,
That was funny.
don't have to go buy a new jersey. But yeah, I mean, for me, I agree with you though. I think right tackle is the biggest need. And again, I going back to when the Broncos signed Juwan James, I liked him. I think he makes a lot of sense. The fact that he's mobile and able to get up on the second level and play like that will help. He's versatile enough to be a contributor for both gap scheme and zone runs.
He just hasn't
But again,
played, you
just
know?
hasn't played 65 snaps. It's and it essentially that means he had. It's like Walker Little. Like people took ball. Like, he got taken in the second round. I would have not touched Walker Little in the second round because you haven't seen him play in 2 years. Like you have no idea what he's actually capable of on a football field right now.
Yeah.
I am really high on this Broncos roster though, and that, again, I said this at the beginning, but that is one of the reasons why I am banging the drum so hard for Aaron Rodgers now that that's where they are. That's where they are, having passed on Justin Fields. I don't think this roster is bad enough to fall into a situation where you can get a quarterback again. I also, based on what I've seen from the 2022 quarterback class, I am not optimistic. I know at one point we were talking about how Sam Howell was the top guy. If Sam Howell is the best quarterback in the next year's class, it's a bad class.
Oh, we got our tackle. Illinois State, Drew Himmelman.
Yep.
Hope,
Uh,
hopefully a right tackle. You're gonna
he
say he's a guard.
is.
You're gonna say he's a guard, aren't you?
Oh, he's his right tackle. He's 6'9". I don't think he's gonna be able to play inside.
Good.
I
Oh,
haven't
that's good.
watched again. I haven't watched him yet. But this is just based on like what I'm seeing right now. Uh, First team All American in 2019. He didn't opt out last year. He tried to play instead of opting out. He was one of the few 2021 prospects who elected to play during the spring season. Um, so he played 4 games in the spring.
Nice.
That's weird. So yeah, definitely raw. Definitely has to get better. He gives ground to bull rushers, and this is off of Dane Brugler. Dane Brugler is one of the best draft guys there is. Um, Punch timing, handwork, like he's raw. He's a long, toolsy guy. But here's the thing: Villanueva was a college right tackle or a college wide receiver who played for Army, and he signed as I want to say an undrafted free agent with the Steelers back in the day. And Munchak turned him into a Pro Bowl left tackle. So
Yeah, and
like,
that's the
I'm
thing.
definitely
Munchak,
optimistic with raw guys like this. It's just
we got
I
Munchak.
don't think he's
That's
going
all
to
that
help this
matters.
year.
And then we also got Temple wide receiver Brendan Mack.
And I don't know anything about him.
Well, good. So we
Yeah.
got him.
Sorry about that, guys. I can look him up.
Aaron Rodgers, come on down. We got Brendan Mack, baby. Let's go.
I mean, you got Brendan Mack. What else do you need?
Exactly. Looks like actually Meta Firebird had some information on Himmelman. Used to be a defensive end before he switched.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Neat.
always a good sign because that means that he had the athleticism to play on defense. Because you're not playing on a lot of offensive linemen. What happens is they don't have like the juice to play on defense at the college level. And again, like that's not to say that they're bad, but it's just like they're not the same kind of athlete. So when you have a big guy like that who did play defense, like that's a really good sign. That's one of the reasons why people are really high on James Hudson.
All right. Well, I think we kind of covered the draft here. Um, how would you grade the full picture of the whole draft, including the process, the lack of a quarterback, the players that were picked, all of the trades, the whole shebang? How would you grade?
If because again, if I'm including all of that stuff, I have to consider the fact that maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe not. If Aaron Rodgers is coming, it's an A+ draft because no, and not even just because Aaron Rodgers
The
himself, but I'm saying
caveat, right?
no. Let me explain because like if the Broncos are going to go out and get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to have to trade essentially probably 3 first-round picks,
Yeah,
probably multiple like second-round picks and stuff. So taking the players they did this year, it's about filling the needs that you will not be able to address next year. And I think that was brilliant if that's what they're doing. If
yeah.
there isn't a quarterback coming, I can't get over the fact that he passed on Justin Fields because I do think that he's going to end up. I think that that's going to be a huge. It's going to be a disaster. Um,
Well, here's the
I like the
caveat.
players, but if that's what happened, I would give it a B, maybe.
Well, here's the caveat with those quarterbacks. So Joe Mahoney, who does a lot of statistical breakdowns, figured out that um, the best chance you have at getting a franchise quarterback is in the top 15, and
Hmm.
even then, the bust rate is still 60%. And five quarterbacks are taken in the top 15. That means only two of the five are going to become franchise quarterbacks. Predict the
And you missed
two.
that, and you gave up the chance at two of them.
No, predict the two you think
No, but I'm
that'll be franchise quarterbacks.
but I'm saying you can't win that race if you're not even in that race. And the Broncos
True,
gave up on two of the quarterbacks. So, like that's my issue.
true.
And
But
they
who
didn't even make the picks out.
pick two and tell and then if one of them's
Pick two that are gonna make it or pick two that are gonna bust.
no two that are going to be for sure,
For sure, franchise quarterback. I mean,
and
Trevor Lawrence.
the other three will for sure be busts.
I
If
don't
you
think I don't think three of these. Again, Joe and me and
hey,
Joe. No, and
history
I'm
says
telling
you're
you, me
wrong.
that's fine. Me and Joe Mahoney have gone back and forth on this because he's looking at a macro view of all the quarterback classes dating back to however. I think this quarterback class, and I said this
To
on, I no, I
however,
said
like
this.
1950.
No, I don't think it's that far back. I
I
think
know
it's modern
it's
history.
usually sticks to
Um,
2000 and later.
yeah, I want to say it's about 2000. And you look at some of the quarterback classes since 2000, most of them are garbage. We hype them up every year and then they don't live up to it. In 2019, when people were saying it was bad, everyone was like, "Oh, you're just saying that." It's like, no, it was a bad class, and people still took Daniel Jones at 6. Like
Well,
Daniel Jones is
I'm
going to be a bust because he shouldn't have been drafted at 6. This quarterback class, and I said this on Cover Two Broncos on Thursday. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields in a normal quarterback class would have been first overall picks. Zach Wilson, off the year that he had last year, would be a first overall pick in a normal year. Trey Lance is a project that people are taking a chance on because Josh Allen developed, and I get it. And people love his intangibles. He has a very high bust rate just because he's not accurate yet. They have 17 games they're building portfolio off of. So like he looks risky, and I think Mac Jones is going to disappoint as a top quarterback.
yes.
I think he's a well, I
Screw
think
the
he's a backup. I
Patriots.
think he's a second round quarterback that got drafted in the first round, kind of like Daniel Jones.
Hey,
But that said, no, I think Justin Fields, and again, Zach Wilson's going to be dependent on what happens around him because the Jets are a mess. But I think Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are both going to be very good quarterbacks. I think
I
Trey Lance landing with the Niners means he's going to probably be a very good quarterback.
I am guaranteeing Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance will be franchise quarterbacks. I'm guaranteeing Zach Wilson and Mac Jones will be busts, and I'm guaranteeing I don't know anything about Justin Fields. The fact that he was drafted by the Bears, I'm going to guarantee he's going to be a bust because he was drafted by the Bears. I mean the
Makes
Bear
sense. No,
if the
history
Washington
suggests that will happen. Yeah.
yes if the Jets, Washington, Chicago, any of those teams draft a quarterback, I mean see you later, dude. You're done. Have a nice career.
Better
Take
than the
that money
Raiders,
and
I
run.
guess.
Oh, and the Raiders. Raiders too. The Raiders suck also.
Jamarcus Russell. But no, so, and again, I think if Peyton has a plan, that isn't just, hey, we're just gonna throw Vic Fangio a bone and give him Teddy Bridgewater and then fire him after the year. I if there's more of a plan than that, I think this draft class was great.
God, if they
If
fire
that's the plan,
Fangio,
but if the plan was basically give Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock to Fangio and then just sacrifice him after the year, I have problems with this draft class because he passed on a potential franchise quarterback.
and so you're basically saying we got to go all in on Aaron Rodgers in the next over the next month,
Oh
June
man,
2nd.
if I would have known that Aaron Rodgers was available 2 months ago, I would have said that they need to go all in on him then. Like
I know.
he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever. Like
Well,
there's
somebody said, would you really trade the farm? And I said,
yes,
yeah, I'd trade
yes.
two, three farms. Right, trade all the
I'll go buy a
farms.
I'll go buy a farm and then sell it so I can get Aaron
Yes,
Rodgers
and then declare
in
bankruptcy.
Wisconsin.
I mean, you're talking about the reigning MVP with this roster, an instant Super Bowl contender like for the next 3 years, and
Can you imagine
he
what
might even
Jerry
play
Judy and
another
Carlos
five
Sutton are
years.
going to
Oh,
do with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers?
the guy is
Like
always open. Like
remember
just
remember when Demarius Thomas and Eric Decker looked like cute players who weren't going to actually be good
well, he
because
had Tim Tebow.
They had Tim Tebow, and then all of a sudden they had Peyton Manning. They both became Pro Bowl type players. That's what will happen if the Broncos get Aaron Rodgers. Is Jerry Judy, Cortland Sutton will look like elite receivers because they have somebody who can deliver them the ball. If Drew Lock develops, that could happen. I'm just not, and again, I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm not super optimistic based on history that Drew Lock is going to be more than a guy.
Well, on that depressing note, um, no, I'm just
No, we're
kidding.
getting Aaron Rodgers. I'm saying that's not depressing at all. I believe in George. I like based on this draft and the way they went about it.
I like
I'm
the
giving him a chance.
philosophy.
I think there's a process at play. Like we were all really reactionary and really upset when he declined Kareem Jackson's team option, but George Payton gambled on the market because he knew what the market was. Like he's proving that he knows what he's doing. We'll see, because again, the Packers may not trade Aaron Rodgers and then we're screwed. But if Payton thinks this is going to happen, like this is a masterstroke and he's going to be the favorite for executive of the year because this team would be a Super Bowl contender.
Oh, if he gets
And
Aaron Rodgers, 100%
if
he'll be
if the
executive of the year.
Broncos if the Broncos land Aaron Rodgers top to bottom, their roster is better than the Chiefs.
All right, one last question. If the Broncos don't make the playoffs, will Fangio be fired?
Yes,
You're calling it, huh?
yes.
I
I'm not saying
think
I want that to happen. I think it will happen.
I don't think he'd. I think it depends. I think if they're competitive and quarterback play continues to plague the team, and but they still somehow get close to 500 or maybe one game over, one game under, I think they'll show enough improvement. And I mean, if you're smart, and I think Peyton is smart, he's going to realize that Fangio was fighting all year long an uphill battle that he couldn't win with the quarterback situation. Um, and that's a situation that Peyton himself didn't address. And if he's smart, he'd take responsibility for that and fix it and give Fangio another year. Now, I like Fangio a lot. Um, I really think that he's going to hold the defense together. The scheming that he does, the chess matches with Andy Reid. You want a guy like Fangio running the defensive side of the ball. Now you got to get him a quarterback. He had
Well,
this as a defensive coordinator in Chicago. He had the same problem. I mean, they had a great defense, and they went 12-4 with oh, what's his name? Um,
Mr. Trubisky.
oh yeah, it was
People,
rookie year,
but
huh? Or
yeah,
no, year two?
no,
Yeah,
yeah. But people, here's the thing: people get mad because we cover quarterbacks a lot right now. We're quarterback thirsty at Mile
I
High
know
Park.
everybody hates it.
No, but here's the thing: you don't win in the NFL year after year if you don't have a quarterback. You can have a fluke year like the Bears had because your defense is historic, and then the next year you disappoint because the defense slides down a little bit and the offense is still not good enough.
Yeah,
Right now, what the Broncos have is they have a coach who's going to get every single ounce of talent out of the defense. So if they stay healthy, this defense is going to be a top 10 defense next year. That said, if Drew Lock does not take a jump and they do not acquire a quarterback, the offense is maybe going to be average. And that's optimistic, and that's with Bridgewater. And if that happens and the Broncos miss the playoffs, here's the other things that, like, kind of like behind the scenes of this all. And I'm not rooting for this. This is just based on what I know. I spoke with Nikki Jabala about the ownership situation back in February. I know we're all doing like Brittany Bolin right now, but the Broncos are probably going to be sold this year. When the Broncos get sold, what's going to end up happening is Joe Ellis is stepping back. John Elway is probably done after this year. So then you have George Payton and a new owner. And if the Broncos fail to make the playoffs and George Payton wants to keep his job, and he probably does, Vic Fangio's the scapegoat.
yeah, which would be unfortunate, and that's like the worst case scenario. And that's a big reason why I've been pissing and moaning about the quarterback
Quarterback,
situation for four
same.
months because I
Because
don't
I don't want
want
him to
to
get.
lose what we've
And again,
got on defense.
people try to stick the whole like the Broncos record under Fangio, and I get it. And I have complaints about Fangio. I'm not saying he's faultless. Like some of his clock management stuff really bothers me. But at the end of the day, there isn't another defensive coach who has done what he's done to Pat Mahomes. And at the end of the day, you have to go through Kansas City to win the AFC West. So I want to give him a real chance at a quarterback because he's had Joe Flacco, Brandon Allen, Drew Lock,
Jeff
Kendall
Driscoll,
Hinton, Jeff Driscoll, and Brett Rippon. Like that's not even fair. That's like playing chess without a queen.
I like that analogy. Let's go get ourselves a queen.
Let's get Aaron Rodgers.
I know. Whew. Oh man, you're getting me excited again. Stop. It hasn't happened yet. I don't want to think about it because It's like a 5% chance, and you got me like all worked up
I
and
think it's better than a 5% chance.
man,
Here's the thing.
shh.
No,
No,
here's my
no.
thing with Aaron Rodgers. No, yeah, turn me off if you want, but here's my thing. Aaron Rodgers had 3 teams that he wanted to go play for based on what we know. It was the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Niners. The
Yep.
Niners just drafted Trey Lance. They're out. Like they're not trading Trey Lance to the Packers. Like the Packers have Jordan Love. Like they're not doing it. The Raiders might be available, like might be an option, but you look at the Raiders cap situation, like they're going to have a hard time acquiring Aaron Rodgers. Like they're going to have to do some gymnastics. And they would then be gutting their roster for him to step into. Like do you think Aaron Rodgers wants to go there? Like if he has the say in it, the Broncos are way more appealing than the Raiders are on paper for a new quarterback, especially a quarterback who wants to make a fair deal. And that's what I'm sure Aaron Rodgers wants to make a fair market rate contract. The Broncos have the cap space to do that, and they can still keep most of their roster together, and it's worth it.
And you know
And they're
what?
a Super Bowl contender.
In that situation too, you could even keep Drew Lock and have him sit with Aaron Rodgers on the roster.
You could.
I know Aaron Rodgers isn't known for being a mentor, but you know, if he could sit and learn from one of the best ever, I mean, you know, that's only going to help him. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. To
Okay.
me, it's a
Sorry about
five
that.
percent chance. It's Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. That's the situation. They got to
I
find, got to find a
well, I
way to
want
win
to.
with them.
I want to throw this out there just because I do. Again, people accuse me of being really doom and gloom, and I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm just trying to be realistic. Like with
I know.
everything. Again,
I
no,
had to time somebody out for coming in and trash talking you right away without even adding any value.
sorry about that, guys. But no, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. It's just the reality of the situation is the Broncos right now are a quarterback away. The good news is if you look around at the quarterbacks who have become available outside of Russell Wilson, who wants to play in a big market, all the quarterbacks who are becoming available are interested in the Broncos because the Broncos have a good city, it's a good location. They have basically the infrastructure in place to be supportive of a player like that. And then you look at the roster. Like the Broncos have a roster that most quarterbacks that are worth a lick know they could win a Super Bowl with. So even if the Broncos don't get Aaron Rodgers this year, and again, I would be very bummed if that happens, they will still be a very appealing place for a new quarterback. It's just a matter of going to get one. It's almost like the Nuggets. Like for a long time, we were kind of in this situation where we were hoping for the Nuggets to acquire a superstar, and then Jokic fell in our laps. But until that happened, everyone was kind of pining for Blake Griffin and all these other. We're in that situation right now with the Broncos. We're waiting for a quarterback, but Peyton and Elway have done a fantastic job building the nest for a quarterback to want to come here. They just have to go get one.
Yeah, and that's where the Broncos are today after the draft. You know, they nailed free agency, they nailed the draft, they got a lot of talent. Um, but we're right back where we were at the end of or in January after the season ended.
You know, it's gonna be
Quarterback
hilarious if
situation is
Drew.
still a thing.
It's gonna be hilarious if Drew Lock is a unicorn like Josh Allen, and that next year he's an MVP
Oh
candidate.
man, I will take all of the hate.
I don't even care. Yeah, I'll be so happy. I
Yeah.
don't. Again, people confuse the fact that I'm down on Drew Lock with me rooting against him. It's not that I'm rooting against him. I just know too much to blindly follow, like drink the Kool Aid.
Well,
But
it's like
I hope he develops. Like I see the arm talent.
yeah, I see a lot of Jay Cutler in Drew Lock. You know, he's got the arm talent, but he's a little too loose with it sometimes. But you know, it we'll have to see. You know, we don't know what's going to happen in a month. But as of right now, you know, unless like you said, unless Drew Lock makes huge improvements over what he showed us last year, Teddy Bridgewater is going to beat him out in
Yeah,
training camp. Training camp. He's a seasoned veteran, been a starter for a long time, and
he
you know,
fits the Shermer offense better than Lock does.
yeah. I mean, that's Locke's in a tough situation. He's going to come out and have to really fight for his job. Um, but
But I think that's. And again, I'm not saying this rooting for Drew Lock to lose the competition, but I think that that's what they should have done last year. Is they should have given him a reason to have to come to camp on top of everything because that's how like he didn't prove enough. And again, I liked what he showed as a rookie. I'm not trying to say I didn't, but I liked it with the idea that you then bring in a hedge to protect yourself. And the Broncos entered last offseason with the idea of either Drew Lock is the guy or we're going to bottom out into a quarterback. Well, now they had Drew Lock all last year. They bottomed out and they didn't take a quarterback. Grabbing Teddy Bridgewater now makes sure that they can't do that again. But
But
you're
then
in a
what?
situation now where, yeah, that's the question. And again, I know I keep going back to this, but I just think that that's where we're at right now. Is the Broncos came into the draft a quarterback away, and unless Drew Lock makes a massive jump, they're still a quarterback away.
Yeah. Well, the Broncos just signed Iowa tight end Sean Bayer, so they
Like
got
it.
that.
I like it a lot. He was on my list.
Yeah,
He's a blocking tight end. He'll play inline.
a
Um,
goal line.
what he Yeah, well, what he does is he gives you a cheaper version of Nick Vanette, and he's able to play on the line. So you could, if again, if Albert O can't come back healthy, you have a guy who can play in line, so Noah Fant can flex out and play either as a big slot or as a matchup weapon. So I like that a lot.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna go get some dinner. Been working all day. It's kind of I'm gonna take a few hours to relax. But I think I had fun covering this draft.
Me too.
We've covered Elway for 10 years, and I think we all kind of knew his tendencies and what to expect on draft day. It's kind of predictable because we just covered it every year.
Also, it
Um,
was leaky. Like Elway, when
leaky.
Elway was, well, when Elway was GM, we knew the positions he was going to be chasing a month and a half before it actually happened. Because when he was at the combine, he made it really obvious, and then everybody would kind of just put the pieces together and figure it out. Like the last 2 years when we were covering the Broncos, I would look at the people that they had visits with, and I would know who they were going to draft.
Yep. Yep. And this
I
year was
love
kind
that
of
Peyton's
weird
not like that at
because
all.
well, year was kind of weird because it was really limited too.
Yeah.
I think next year things will probably be a lot more normal in terms of what we've used to see year in and year out. But yeah, it was just fun. I had a lot of fun all 3 days. Mile High Report. Yeah, we were working furiously trying to cover every angle. My biggest thing was just trying to curate video content and highlights
Mhm.
for more casual fans who don't watch college football. I know you were doing more deep dives, kind of big reviews. Anybody who's not reading Joe on Mile High Report, you're missing a lot of detailed content, in-depth detailed content, a lot of knowledge that you gain from that. Um, and then of course, Scotty and his rapid fire stuff that goes on. So, oh no, we had a lot of fun. We covered a lot of quotes. Got more stuff coming today and tomorrow. But I think moving forward, this year, I think you and I had talked, Joe, with this draft class. I think maybe not starting right away, but maybe in a week or two, start breaking down each player, do a little film
I would love
session
to.
here on Twitch. So I have the ability to share clips and stuff on my end, and we can kind of break down some cut ups and kind of do some film study sessions. So if anybody in chat here wants to keep that in mind, we'll be announcing it beforehand, and those posts will be on our website as well and on social media, Twitter at Mile High Report. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's a huge draft class and a lot of positions that require knowledge of film, because we're talking linebackers, corners, um, lot goes on the defense. So it'll be really fun to do that. I think if we can get in and do like a every other week kind of pace, give us 2 weeks to kind of prep for each of those breakdowns.
Mhm.
That's a lot of film work between now and training camp.
It is.
But I think it's fun to get on a show because we get these questions. People are talking with us. It's fun. I like it. I like the
If any of
format.
you guys stumble into a Wisconsin whitewater tape, I would love to get it. So
Just no, we're gonna look at him bulldozing trees. I want to see more of that.
okay, we'll do a film breakdown on bulldozing trees.
Yeah, yeah, and this like we'll make a whole like training program out of it. If you
Be
live
good.
in northern Canada, this is how you train for the NFL, right? He looks like a fun dude. In
He
fact,
is.
if you're not following him on Twitter, go find him. You can probably find his Twitter handle on the Broncos official Twitter account, but he's doing a T-shirt sale of his brand, but all proceeds go towards helping somebody who's fighting a very terrible illness. So if you're looking to support a good cause and support a new Bronco, um, go look for Quinn. How do you say his last
And
name?
Quinn Miners. M E
Miners.
I. Yep. MEINERZ.
Yeah, definitely go seek him out. He's got some charity stuff going on. He's really pushing it during the draft and after the draft. He's really trying to help fund this person's a 16-year-old girl's fight. So, um, go check that out. Great guy. In fact, a lot of the players are all like that. Very high, great people. Looking forward to getting to know these guys. I'm just excited. I love the draft. You know,
So
I'm not going to engage the quarterback debate. It's Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock. I'm not going to. I'm moving on. I pushed the quarterback stuff all off
at
season. It's over.
least one of us can, I guess.
Yeah, free agency's over, draft's over. Unless something crazy happens, it's Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock. We'll see who wins that battle. But I love this draft. Every step of the way. I feel like we picked up potential. I like it. So we'll see how it
Me
works
too.
out. But yeah, it was a great week. Go Broncos. Great getting on with you, Joe, and I look forward to doing more of these
Definitely.
shows with you, man.
Definitely was fun. Go
Awesome.
Broncos. Yeah.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
And 4 looks into the nickel of San Francisco in the secondary. Hey, somebody has run out on the field. Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop
Look
that
out,
man.
here comes the blue coat,
Oh,
Kevin.
they got him.
Here
They're
comes the
coming
blue
from the
coats.
left. Oh, and they tackle him at the 40-yard line. Oh, that was the most exciting night.
I tell you what, that was a great call on your part. That was a great call. All right, I'm ready for the last 11:31 now, Kevin. Let's go.
Look at the police. They've surrounded this man like he is, like he's just robbed a bank.
I tell you what, he got a whole lap in
He did,
before they
yes.
got him. I mean, that was pretty good. I expected him to go down much sooner.
Yeah. And 4. Look.